Scrum Masters Elite_UK, where rugby is analysed as lessons for life. If you enjoy deep and unique perspectives, subscribe to join the journey.
A new chapter is opening for the All Blacks, where each player is not just playing the game, but rewriting their own place within a system that feels both familiar and unfamiliar. I realize that, now that the coaching staff has been finalized under Dave Rennie, all eyes naturally shift toward the players. This creates a very particular state. No one can rely on the past anymore. There are no guaranteed spots, no old reputations. Everything returns to the starting line, both fair and ruthless. Looking at that context, this year's Easter season becomes interesting in a very unique way. Only 2 New Zealand teams are involved, Chiefs and Crusaders, but the very scarcity makes every detail stand out more. Each match is no longer just a contest, but feels like a large-scale audition for the prestigious black jersey. I paid special attention to the lock position, a role that used to be a concern a few years ago. Back then, squad depth wasn't particularly impressive. But now, things have changed. It's not just about having replacements, it's about genuine competition. And to me, competition is always a sign of a healthy system. Tupou, Vaa'i and Josh Lord are 2 names that make me think. Not just because of their form, but because of their completeness. Their lineout takes, especially Lord's 27, are not just statistics. They reflect consistency, game awareness, and the trust his teammates place in him. Double that of any other player that doesn't come from luck.
But what impresses me even more is the combination of power and mobility. In modern rugby, being strong alone is not enough. Players must live within the tempo of the game, move intelligently, and appear in the right places. And when both Vaa'i and Lord demonstrate that, it feels like they are not just competing, they are raising the standard of their position. Looking at the tackle numbers, 57 for Lord in 6 matches, 44 for Vaa'i in 5, I don't just see hard work. I see an attitude, a willingness to do the unseen work. It makes me ask myself, in work or in life, am I willing to take on the less glamorous tasks that ultimately determine outcomes? Then my attention shifts to Quinn Tupaea. If I had to choose a model of consistency, he would come to mind. 451 minutes played, the most on the team, is not just a time statistic. It is proof of trust. A coach doesn't give that many minutes unless they believe a player can maintain quality. What Tupaea has done: 75 carries, 23 defenders beaten, 71 tackles, 598 running meters, clearly shows one thing. He may not be the most explosive standout, but he is always there when needed. And often, players like that are the true foundation of a team.
This leads me to a very personal lesson. We don't always need to be the brightest star. Sometimes, being consistent, reliable, and delivering your role well is already incredibly valuable, even if it's not immediately recognized. At hooker, the competition between Samisoni Taukei'aho and Cody Taylor offers another perspective. Taukei'aho, with 5 tries, 309 meters carried, and only 2 missed tackles out of 55, represents a player at peak form. He doesn't just do his job, he makes a clear impact on the scoreboard. Meanwhile, Cody Taylor tells a completely different story. 150 Super Rugby matches, that's a milestone not to be taken lightly. It represents experience, resilience, and the ability to perform at a high level over time. Even with less game time this year, he shows no signs of stepping back. This contrast makes me reflect on a bigger question. In a competitive system, what do we value more, current form or accumulated experience? The answer is probably never absolute. It depends on timing, strategy, and how individuals adapt to circumstances. Lester Fenganuku is another name that caught my attention, not just for the numbers, 447 meters, 30 defenders beaten, but for the motivation he carries. When a player takes the field with strong motivation, it often comes from a deep need to prove something. Maybe to others, but also to himself.
I realize that in sports, as in life, motivation doesn't always come from comfort. Sometimes, pressure, competition, or even doubt is what pushes us forward. Will Jordan, as a temporary captain, brings yet another perspective: leadership. When a younger player is handed the captaincy due to a senior's absence, it's not just a temporary decision. It's a test, 615 meters run, 12 line breaks, 25 defenders beaten. These numbers show he performs individually. But as captain, the question is no longer how well does he play, but how well does he make the team play? This makes me reflect deeply on leadership. Being technically excellent doesn't automatically make someone a good leader. And having a title doesn't guarantee influence. Leadership, to me, is about elevating others, not just showcasing yourself. Finally, Fletcher Newell is a perfect example of quiet but essential contribution. A pillar in the front row, a position often only noticed when mistakes happen. 147 meters carried, 54 tackles. These aren't headline numbers, but they build the foundation, and that may be the biggest takeaway from this entire picture. In a strong system, no role is small. Every individual, whether prominent or quiet, contributes to the whole. For me personally, this story is a clear reminder: competition is not something to fear, but an opportunity to reassess ourselves. Form, consistency, experience, and motivation all have value, but only when placed in the right context. For fans, perhaps what matters most is not just victory, but the journey behind it. The numbers we see on screen are the result of countless hours of training, invisible pressure, and difficult decisions. More broadly, for all of us, this reflects a fundamental truth: life always has reset phases. No matter what we've achieved in the past, there will come times when we must prove our worth again.
But perhaps what matters most is not how many opportunities we have, but how we use them. In a world where everything can change quickly, adaptability, perseverance, and work ethic may be the most decisive factors. As I close these reflections, I don't feel overwhelmed by competition. On the contrary, I feel a greater sense of clarity. Whether on the field or in life, what I can control is not how good others are, but how willing I am to give my best. And perhaps, that is the true beginning of every new journey.
Scrum Masters Elite_UK. Every new journey begins with competition and effort. Thank you for following, and see you in the next chapter.